The reception hall glowed like a dream. Fairy lights were strung across the exposed beams, casting a soft shimmer on the polished floors. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and the gentle hum of the band filled the corners of the room. My wedding day had been perfect, or so I thought, until it became unforgettable in a way no one could have anticipated. I sat at the head table, my hands neatly folded in front of me. To my right, Thomas, my new father-in-law, smiled warmly in a navy suit, the kind of smile that felt steady, reassuring, and over the past 18 months genuinely kind. Across from us, I had positioned my parents and my brother Derek exactly where I wanted them. "Rachel," Thomas said casually, his voice floating above the soft music, "have you checked the $75,000 investment account we opened for you last month? James mentioned the dividends came through this quarter. It's looking very promising." The reaction was immediate. Derek, who had been mid-sentence explaining to my uncle how his student loan debt had finally dipped below 6 figures, froze completely. His champagne glass wobbled in his hand. My mother's knife clattered against her plate, and the smile she'd been wearing all evening vanished like mist. My father's grip on his water glass whitened in an instant. "What account?" my mother whispered, the words sharp enough to cut through the music. I met her gaze steadily, my champagne flute resting carefully in my hand. 28 years of being her daughter had taught me exactly how to hold my expression. Calm, composed, unreadable. Thomas continued as though nothing had happened. "We were thrilled when Rachel accepted our offer. A diversified portfolio, stocks, bonds, a few international funds, seemed perfect for someone starting her career. Our financial advisor was impressed by her questions about tax-advantaged growth. You opened an investment account?" my father asked, his voice tight, defensive. "Yes," I said evenly. "Thomas and Linda were generous enough to provide seed capital for my financial future." "Seed capital?" Derek's voice cracked. "Absolutely," Linda, my mother-in-law, said from the other side of Thomas. She wore an elegant cream dress, and her smile radiated genuine warmth. "We wanted to ensure Rachel had a strong foundation. The account is structured for long-term growth, with quarterly dividends for living expenses." My mother's hand shook as she reached for her wine glass. Her floral perfume, the one I'd breathed in for decades, seemed heavier somehow, suffocating in the tension. "Rachel," she said, her voice trembling, "you never mentioned anything about this. Why didn't you ask us?" I replied calmly, "Because when I asked for guidance or support in the past, the answer was always no. This is different. This is people who believe in me." The silence at the head table was thick. Around us, the reception continued, oblivious to the storm at the table. Laughter rang out. The band changed songs. But at the head table, my family sat frozen, exposed. Thomas pressed on. "We've also set up automatic monthly contributions. Rachel won't need to add a thing for 5 years. By then, with compound growth and reinvested dividends, the account should be substantial." "Monthly contributions?" my father asked, his voice tight, calculating. "Yes, $2,000 a month. Call it a wedding gift with longevity." My father's face drained of color. My mother whispered the numbers aloud. "Nearly $200,000 in total." "You financed your education yourself," my mother repeated, disbelief and accusation in her voice. "Yes," I said. "With scholarships, part-time jobs, and discipline. I didn't need your help to graduate debt-free. Derek did. That's the difference." Every word I said landed like a hammer, exposing years of favoritism and neglect. My family had no defense. No words. Only shock, tears, and the weight of decades revealed in an instant. James squeezed my hand under the table. We had rehearsed this moment for weeks. We knew exactly when to let it unfold. "This is a significant gift," my father said, his voice strained. "What did you promise in return?" Linda's expression froze. "I beg your pardon? I'm just asking about expectations," he said. Thomas's voice cut through, sharp and composed. "The expectation? That Rachel continues being the brilliant, driven woman she already is. Nothing more. People don't give away $75,000 lightly, but love isn't transactional. And Rachel is our daughter now." My mother flinched. My father opened his mouth, then shut it. The confrontation had begun, but I remained calm. My champagne glass steady. My composure intact. And in that moment I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The quiet satisfaction of finally being seen, of finally being valued. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Comment below what you would have done if you were in Rachel's shoes. And if you're enjoying this story, give it a like, it really helps the channel. The tension at the head table didn't dissolve, it thickened. My mother's hand shook as she clutched her napkin, and Derek's face had gone from shock to outright indignation. My father's jaw tightened, a storm brewing behind his composed exterior. Every word I had spoken earlier had struck at the heart of decades-long favoritism, and now the air itself seemed heavy with unspoken accusations. "Rachel," my mother said, voice quivering but sharp, "surely this is something we should have discussed first. We're your parents." I leaned back slightly, keeping my tone calm, measured but unwavering. "We're not talking about casual gifts here. This was a carefully structured investment in my future. Something you refused to do for me my entire life. You didn't prioritize me. You prioritized Derek." Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not true." "It is," I said quietly. "When I applied to graduate school with partial funding and asked for help with the remaining $8,000, the answer was no. You were helping Derek with his student loans. Again, my needs were always secondary." "Always," Derek scoffed, red creeping into his ears. "I had to be supported. I was drowning in debt. And I was trying to build a career," I countered. "But my needs didn't matter, did they? I learned to do everything myself. Plan, save, struggle alone. And now, finally, someone sees my value without conditions." Thomas leaned forward, voice firm but calm. "Rachel came to us with a 5-year plan. Graduate school, certifications, career advancement. She already had a roadmap. We simply provided the safety net to make it possible." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again, struggling for words. "But I asked. I tried. You said no," I reminded her softly. "Every time. I found solutions myself. That's why this matters so much. It's not just the money. It's the validation of my independence, my ambition, my worth." My father's face twisted, his voice low and cautious. "We've always supported you." "You've supported Derek," I corrected gently, my voice carrying more weight than he expected. "Not me. And the difference is clear now." Derek's face flushed crimson. "So what? You just have a $75,000 account now. Big deal." "It's more than money," I said, letting each word sink in. "It's people investing in me because they believe in me, because they value me. Something I never had from my own family." My mother's hand reached for me, desperation in her eyes. "Please don't let this ruin us. We can fix this." I pulled back slightly, calm but firm. "Money isn't what ruined us. Your choices ruined us. This just made it visible." James squeezed my hand under the table, silent support anchoring me. I met my parents' eyes, steady, unwavering. "Can you genuinely celebrate my success without resentment? Can you support my future without feeling it takes away from Derek?" The silence that followed was deafening. My parents had no answer. They were cornered not by me, but by the truth I spoke, a truth they had spent decades avoiding. Every breath around us felt heavy with exposure. Their favoritism, their selective care, their inability to treat me as equal, it had all been revealed in one moment. The photographer, who I had instructed to capture the head table, caught it all. My mother's tear-streaked face, my father's defensive posture, Derek's mortification, and me calm, composed, untouchable. Thomas spoke again, voice steady, slicing through the tension. "Rachel doesn't need to apologize for her success. She doesn't owe explanations. We're proud to invest in her future because she deserves it." Linda's hand brushed mine gently. "Shall we circulate? Thank some guests." Grateful for the reprieve, I nodded. James rose with me. But as we moved away, I heard the quiet sobs behind us, my mother's performance of despair, crafted to draw sympathy. Derek muttered something about fairness, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had already won the victory that mattered most. Dignity, autonomy, and being recognized for my worth. That night, after the reception, my mother intercepted me near the exit. Makeup ruined, hair disheveled, tears streaking her face, she reached out. "Rachel, please, we need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said softly but firmly. You never paid attention to me. But Thomas and Linda did. They invested in me because they saw my potential. You didn't. That's the difference. Her voice wavered between desperation and accusation. We're your family. We love you. You loved the idea of me, I replied. Not the person I am. I'm done pretending. Derek stepped closer, voice shaking. We've always been there for you. For Derek, I corrected, letting each syllable land. I was expected to manage alone. And I did. But no longer. My father tried one last appeal. You are always so capable. We thought you didn't need help. I was capable because I had no choice, I said. But I shouldn't have had to prove it constantly. And just like that, the conflict reached its turning point. I had laid bare every inequity, every slight, every ignored struggle. And for the first time in my life, my parents had no words. Only silence. Only the stark recognition of what they had failed to provide. The reception continued around us, oblivious, but I had already stepped into a new reality, one where my value wasn't up for debate, where my ambition could flourish without sabotage, and where my choices were finally mine to make. James took my hand, leading me toward the hotel. You okay? He asked. I'm perfect, I said. Finally free. And they had no choice but to see the truth. The night air outside the reception hall was crisp, but inside me, a quiet triumph burned brighter than any tension that had just unfolded. My parents' favoritism, their selective support, their decades of neglect, all of it had been exposed in front of everyone who mattered. And I had remained calm, poised, unshakable. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about finally claiming the life and respect I deserved. James and I slipped into the car, the soft hum of the engine grounding me. You okay? He asked, his hand finding mine, strong and reassuring. I'm more than okay, I replied. I'm finally understood by the people who actually see my worth. We spent the drive talking about the future, our careers, our dreams, the life we were building together. The $75,000 investment account wasn't just money. It was freedom. It was validation. And in that quiet space, I realized I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. 3 days later, Thomas and Linda's generosity continued to make a tangible difference. We were planning our first home together. The dividends from the account would cover the down payment. Every dollar growing quietly in that account was proof. I was supported not because my parents thought I deserved it, but because people who truly cared about me recognized my value. Meanwhile, my parents remained in the dark, or at least only partially aware. They discovered our new home through Facebook, their silence betraying a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. I didn't call. I didn't explain. Their choices had made it clear. They could no longer claim a role in shaping my success. Weeks turned into months, and the pattern continued. Derek called, struggling financially yet again, asking for a loan. I said no. He called me selfish. I hung up. My mother sent emails asking about holidays, making tentative attempts at connection. I responded politely but firmly. Our time together would be limited, conditional on respect. Silence followed. Their resentment became irrelevant, because I was surrounded by people who valued me unconditionally. Thomas and Linda's support was unwavering. Sunday dinners became a new tradition. They celebrated milestones I had quietly achieved over the years, promotions, achievements, successes my own family had ignored. They asked about my work, my goals, my ambitions. They treated me as family because I was family, not because I fit into a narrative they preferred. 6 months after the wedding, the account had grown to $87,000. Dividends covered car payments and insurance. Monthly contributions continued to accumulate, quietly compounding into a life-changing nest egg. By the time I was 35, projections showed over $300,000. But beyond the financial gain, the true victory was symbolic. I was finally invested in, celebrated, and supported. A year later, a chance encounter at the grocery store reminded me of the divide. My mother stopped mid-aisle, hesitant. Rachel, how are you? Good. You? I replied, neutral but firm. Rachel. I miss you, she said softly. I miss having the family I deserved, I said evenly. But I don't miss the family I had.